Hello, my name is Meghan Williams, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And today we're going to be just talking about all the disruption that's happened, especially in regards to our routines and our rhythms in our families during the COVID crisis. And I think this just is a really important subject for us to talk through as parents, kind of navigating 4 months in to what maybe we thought was a sprint in the beginning, and really what's turned out to be quite the marathon for all of us as parents. So many disruptions have happened, and I'm sure with that has come fatigue for you as a mom or as a dad. What we've really experienced is that this impact is going to look different for everybody, every parent, and especially every child. I mean, I would really say that kids of all ages may have been impacted the most in terms of the disruption and definitely the grief. I think that's a word that we've heard quite a bit throughout this time. The move to quite a bit of virtual connection, I think, has been pretty unprecedented for most of us. It happened without a lot of warning, of course, and none of us have ever navigated this before. So having Zoom calls as our kind of major avenue of connection has been really difficult, not only for our kiddos, but for us as parents as well. So just to start off by acknowledging that today, I think is really, really important. Our routines and our rhythms are so integral to our everyday life. I mean, if you think about it, you have rhythms that surround probably every holiday, birthday, event, even day-to-day markers of how to know kind of what day it is, what we're doing today. Every Sunday or so we go to church, and so we know that is a rhythm that is implanted into our lives, and it creates well-being and meaning for us, connection for us too in our families. That's something that has been shifted and even paused for some churches and communities. Even going to grandma's house maybe every Monday for family dinner has maybe had to be paused. And again, there's where that grief word really comes in and starts to play out. Is the normal way that we did life has been very interrupted. And that's just something to be acknowledged, even in your groups right now or with your coaches. So I guess what we're looking at here is, how do we develop creative new rhythms and routines in our lives? How do we do that? How have you done that really well in the last 4 months? So I'd love for you to pause right now the video and maybe talk about the ways that you have really done that well as parents or in your families. The other piece too, I'd love for you to answer how you have failed. What has not gone well? If you set up a beach date, with your kids to walk along the beach and everyone had a meltdown, right? Or your teen was gonna go do a Zoom call and the internet went out, right? What are some things that have not gone really well? So go ahead and pause and share that with your group. The second piece that I would love to get into is, how are you feeling as a parent? Let's take your emotional temperature right now. I think that's a big piece of this, is that parents really are needing to take care of themselves first and foremost. How has this affected you as a parent? What are you grieving in some of your rhythms and routines? Maybe your exercise rhythms have really been disrupted. Your monthly date night or weekly date night has really been disruptive. Those are absolutely understandable. And that's going to affect our emotional well-being and our ability to be able to be there for our kids. One passage in the Bible really comes to mind. I love Jesus's words in this scripture in Matthew 11:28 through 30. This is from the Message in terms of translation. He says, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me and get away with me, and you will recover your life. I will show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do life. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." I love some of those words in there when he talks about living freely and lightly and unforced rhythms. I wonder how many rhythms in your life have been unforced. Maybe you have to get out of bed, right, to make breakfast for your children really early in the morning, especially if you have little kiddos. That's forced. You have to get out of bed to do that. But how many unforced rhythms, maybe even of connection, could you buy into? Could you start to implement into your life, even in day-to-day moments where you're feeling tired, you're feeling grieved, you're feeling angry or frustrated, and yet you choose to step into that connection with your child? That's an unforced rhythm for you as a parent. I love how Jesus also talks about, come and watch how I do life. I love that idea that he can be our mentor. He's our parent, and we can work alongside him. You know, an analogy that I think of too is one of a horse harness. You know, when horses were used to plow the fields, and how the kind of older, maybe stronger, more experienced horse was hooked up to the harness first. And then the little horse, the younger horse that was in training, so to speak, came alongside that horse, and they put them together in the harness. And that didn't put anything heavy or sort of burdensome on that young horse who was just learning. It actually was very light in terms of the workload that young horse was carrying. So the older horse was the model. The older horse was kind of showing the pattern and the rhythm of how to plow the field. And I love that Jesus uses this idea of a yoke in this passage, that's exactly how we learn from him. He's the more experienced horse, if you will. We come alongside as parents and really learn rhythms of how to connect, how to do life really well, how to abide, and then we get to show that to our kids. So I'm wondering what it's like for you these days to connect with Jesus, to connect with your soul, with the grief that might be going on inside of your soul, and then to model that and work with your kids as if they were your apprentice to life. The other idea that we sort of think about when we think of well-being, even mental or emotional well-being, is this idea that we can respond to life's difficulties in a couple different ways. One of those ways is a response of rigidity. So in the beginning, I remember implementing this crazy structure for my kids that really kind of laid out day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute what we would be doing. Even down to, and now we will dance together and have a dance party, which is not all bad, right? But I went to the rigidity because I was really fearful of what our days would look like if we didn't have any structure to them. So I kind of swung that way to a more structured, fearful, and wanting to be in control of our environment, even of my own emotion in the midst of the pandemic. And the other kind of option and thing that we see is a response full of chaos. And that could be one where we say, everything's out the window, we're eating pizza, we're in PJs all day long, everyone's on screens all day long, right? That could be a response temptation for us. The other aspect to this is that we might feel so afraid that we might live on the chaos that we swing back to that rigidity. So you see kind of that tendency to go from one extreme to another. I know inside of me, I'm always checking, how am I responding in this time? How am I feeling? A little chaotic. Okay, let's navigate back to the middle a little bit. I do that with my kiddos too. So I wonder what that would be like for you as a parent to kind of take inventory of the way that you respond either rigidly or chaotically to anything that's upsetting or disrupting in this time. And then to be able to really mirror that with your child too. Their emotions are gonna come out usually in their behavior. Some kiddos keep everything inside, they kind of shut down. Some will actually explode or have disruptive behavior. However your child responds or your teenager responds in this time, to check in about those rigid and chaotic responses is gonna be important. So let's take a minute and go ahead and pause, and you can feel free to share maybe how you tend to respond to tumultuous times or stress or anxiety, and maybe how your kids do too. All right, so lastly, I'd love to just spend some time looking at some really practical ways that we can implement new routines and kind of creative rhythms in our family. I love Instagram for the way that it really gives me resources. And one of those resources is a parenting coach. Her name is Ralphie Jacobs, and she has a parenting kind of webinar and training called Simply on Purpose. And she has a model that she's rolled out specifically for summertime with kids, but I feel like it really could apply to this pandemic overall and kind of what we're anticipating maybe for the fall with our kids in school too. The first piece that she really talks about is going to be the way that we connect with our kids. Connection is going to be very key when we talk about the relational and the social components of our child's well-being. And so some ways that I've really kind of thought about connecting with kids is giving undivided attention and even eye contact for maybe 5 minutes throughout the day with your child. So that connection, kind of one-on-one time with your child is going to be really, really important. And she sort of bases her whole schedule or this whole model around that connection. Teachers have said every kid will fall kind of below maybe the norm academically in this time. But what we can't go in and repair in the fall is the social and emotional connection and security that each of them have. And that really encouraged me because I felt like, okay, well then that is where I'm going to hone in on my kids and really give support and nurture in the ways that they connect to other people, including me and my husband, but also the ways that they are emotionally cared for. And these ways of connection are just going to be different for each child based on their personality. So if you know your child, you know what some of their social and emotional needs might be. And so it's getting creative and really intentional about setting aside time to connect with your child each day. Just some examples might be to sit with them at breakfast as they eat their cereal and you're looking at them, connecting with them, asking them questions about their day. Telling the story about an event or this whole pandemic and in ways it's affected them is going to be really important too. We find that kids really can heal and become more integrated or secure in their brain if they tell the story of what's happened to them. So asking them questions like, what's that like that you can't see your cousins on a regular basis? What's that like that we had to do a drive-by birthday party for you? What's that like that we all wear masks? How does that feel to you, right? Or how did you like playing in the sprinklers today? For teens, it might look like, what's that like, only being able to talk to your friends via text? Those are going to be important ways to enter into their world and connect. The second piece that she talks about is carving out some time during the day for self-directed time. And I really like that phrase of self-directed because it allows the child to really have choices when it comes to what they do with their day, different activities. So for instance, she talks about play for young kids, letting them just go and make a mess and play in the space that's allotted for that. That really helps them kind of act out and kind of process creatively, maybe even what's going on and how they're feeling. It also gives them another element of learning in a creative way. Reading time, even a Zoom call with friends for older kids or teens might be really helpful too in that self-directed time. Maybe it's nap time. Maybe we say everyone turns off screens, we're all going to take naps. That's really important. Naps are a really good thing. I know for me too. The next piece is learning. So maybe there's a time where you set aside just for learning, and maybe that's not we sit down and we do, math workbooks. Maybe that's all of us take a nature walk and ask yourself, what can we explore or discover that's new together today? I know for my boys, we've gone into the backyard and there was a caterpillar and then it created a cocoon and then we got to watch it become a butterfly. And what a neat kind of science project that was for us that I didn't really even craft or put together. It just really happened beautifully in nature. So some learning time for all of you. And then, of course, we've really heard that moving our bodies in this time is so important. That really goes hand in hand with our mental health. So what is something that you enjoy as a family in terms of activity? Do you like swimming? Can you go on walks in the evenings? Maybe you do walk in the morning and a walk in the evening time to get your body moving. And also, bike rides have been really, really popular these days too, because it gets you outside and moving. And again, your mental health really can benefit from that. The last piece, which might be your favorite piece, it's my favorite piece as a parent, is some adult time, right? So she talks about maybe using that time to be responsible, like run an errand, go to the grocery store, maybe drop off some food for somebody, do a Zoom call with a friend, or maybe don't be responsible. Maybe don't clean the house in that adult time. Maybe you just take a walk on your own, or you sit outside. Maybe you kind of close and lock the door and you just spend some alone time together. Maybe you and your spouse do something in that adult time. That's going to be really important, that she says, that you do every day. Maybe it's 15 minutes, and that is good and that is okay. So she also talks about this being kind of a big soup, and these are a bunch of ingredients that you can kind of mix up all day long. This summer, even into the fall, when maybe there's going to be some more at-home time with learning in the fall. This is all going to be really helpful. How we model and how we develop different values and rhythms is going to be really, really important. The last piece I want to really leave you with is focus on what you can control as a parent in this time. Sometimes I can't control my child's mood. Well, most times. I can't control my child's mood, and I also can't really control the way that they're totally wired. They might be an extrovert who really needs a lot of connection and kind of social time, and I might be more introverted. I think what's important is that we learn to parent out of our personality. Who we are and who you were made to be is going to be the perfect fit for who you are as a parent. Let who you are overflow into what you do with your days with your children, the way that you interact with them, the way that you let them make choices about what means a lot to them and kind of fills their cup as well. So I really want to empower you as parents today and let you know that who you are is absolutely the way that you can parent. Let that, again, overflow into the lives of your kids and your spouse. So why don't we pause and go ahead and share some thoughts that you have as I share some of these ideas regarding this model with connections, self-directed time, learning, active time, and adult time. So go ahead and take a minute and do that. And then lastly, I would just love to leave you with a few resources. I think these would be really important as we think about new routines and creative rhythms in our families. The first one is Simply on Purpose. She's on Instagram and her name is Ralphie Jacobs, and she's a parenting educator. The second one I've really utilized with young kids is the Jesus Storybook Bible. A rhythm that you might implement is morning devotions with your kids, reading really great stories about Jesus and how great he is. And that is by Sally Lloyd-Jones. It's a great Bible for kids. Another book that I really love for families is called 3 Questions for the Frantic Family by Patrick Lencioni. And that's a wonderful book about a family that needed to reorient some of their values and their rhythms around connection and about slowing down. I think a lot of us could really utilize some normalization in terms of slowing down these days. So that's a great book. The Whole Brain Child is a great book. It's by Tina Payne Bryson and Dan Siegel. I love this because it gives very practical tips on how to connect to your kids and their ever-growing brains. In fact, that analogy of chaos and rigidity comes from that book. It's a great way to kind of conceptualize the ways kids and parents respond to stress. And then lastly, there's a book called Seamless Faith: Simple Practices for Daily Family Life by Tracy Smith. And she gives kind of age-appropriate ways we can connect as a family. Times of silence in the car where we're each thinking about our favorite color or our favorite food and then sharing those together. That's one example of some great practical tools in that book. So I know those will be helpful for you as you continue to navigate this time of stress, uncertainty, and some chaos as we continue to develop these routines that will create some security. Thank you.